Yeah,
I'm Brian Burke.
and we're going to talk about 5 things you should know when you travel with your adjustment of status. We can also update you on the Build Back Better Act and the immigration provisions in there. There's a 1 million green card at stake that may come before Christmas. And we're going to answer some questions for you, so don't go away. All right, Brian, Build Back Better Act. Let's talk about that first. Get it out of the way. Nobody's objecting to it. There's going to be everything I read is a positive energy. Obviously, the Republicans are opposed to everything, even though the last recapture was brought by them.
Yeah.
But they're just, they're objecting to the changes and so forth. So there's no big deal. But I don't see anything negative about the immigration piece. I know there are fights about other areas, but the immigration piece, now the parliamentarian
the legal immigration piece.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're just getting to that parliament. You mentioned the P word, parliamentarian.
The P word, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
P for Papa.
Yes. The parliamentarian is looking at the latest version of what the Democrats would have put into the final version of the Build Back Better Act for immigration benefits for the undocumented, a work authorization. And that's still up in the air as to when the parliamentarian's going to say anything.
And all what they're asking for is a 5-year parole, extendable for another 5 years. Yeah. So they've gotten away from the green card or path to citizenship. All that is dumped, and there's no issues there. But that's not, it's a huge battle. It's a big problem for this country and a big immigration issue. I don't want to take anything away from that. But that's not what we're talking about today. And I think probably we should talk about that sometime. I think it's a good topic. But for a different day and a different time, not to take anything away from the very unfortunate situations that people came here when they were children.
Oh, yeah.
Without their...
I'm an immigration lawyer. I can't help it like that stuff too.
They know no other country.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just basically creating a second-class citizen in this country, and we rely on them. 100% of the tomato growers, I'm told, are illegal immigrants. Everybody knows that. They have no problem eating salad every day. They love the salad, but they don't want to make them legal. Yeah. But that's not for today. The legal immigration piece.
Yeah. So, I have a couple hobbies, Sam. I like my car. I like computers. And now my third one is checking the status of the Build Back Better Act.
Yes.
Every couple of days. So what was on the Senate agenda for the day? It was not the Build Back Better Act. It was the defense bill. But basically, it's still going on in the background. I just saw an article about a half hour before we went live. It's basically Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader, released a letter today saying, hey, everybody in the Senate, plan on working late and long hours and right up until the holiday because we're getting this done before Christmas.
Build Back Better Act.
Build Back Better Act, Sam. You said it right because you had fun saying it.
Yes. And he's saying he's passing it before Christmas.
That's what he's saying, and that is, that's.
And what's our friend Manchin saying?
Manchin was apparently quoted recently as saying, I have concerns and I don't see this passing before the end of the year.
But Manchin hasn't talked anything negative about the legal immigration.
Yeah, his concerns were basically ballooning costs and stated broadly. So I don't know what exact. Off the top of my head, it's some Medicare expansions and that sort of thing.
Obviously, inflation is not making things better because everybody's saying we got to be conservative fiscally now. Mm-hmm. And there's fights about different aspects of it, but nothing related to the legal immigration. And this bill must pass because it has the budget in it. No, it has the budget passed already. It has the infrastructure.
For the Democrats, though, it is the infrastructure is the last one. But this is everything. This is the president's policy platform manifest in a bill. It's basically, if these guys can't get this done, this is what they said they're all coming to Washington to do. And if those guys can't get, they're concerned about, getting reelected. They are politicians. If those guys, the logic is, if those guys can't get that done, what the heck did people send them there for? The people who voted for them, of course.
Yes, and clearly there's clear indication that the immigration to the United States, employment immigration, is slowing down. They ran the third H-1B lottery.
Oh yeah, geez.
Yeah, the third H-1B lottery. It looks like the second H-1B lottery did not even fill, which is embarrassing. They ran the third one, and everybody's saying more people are going to Canada, less people come to the United States. No surprise when you take you a decade to decade and a half.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. I'm an immigration attorney, and I live in an immigration-centric world, and I'm thinking about immigration all day. My father-in-law over the Thanksgiving holiday handed me a copy of the New York Times and said, "Brian, I thought you might find this interesting. There's this article in the New York Times on the front page talking about all the other countries in the world are doing these crazy programs to attract immigrants, and the U.S. is doing nothing." So I guess
how far back was that?
This is over the Thanksgiving weekend. I didn't have the opportunity to bring it up here today. So I guess the point of that for me is, if it's out there in the broader media on the front of the New York Times, I guess it's a problem for everybody. It's just not something we're thinking about. So yes. I guess that bodes well for why people might have an appetite for some sort of immigration reform.
Yes. New CEO for Twitter.
Yeah.
Indian.
Yeah.
Parag Agarwal, another Indian-born CEO of a Fortune 50 company. Thumbs up to immigrants. Thumbs up to immigrants from China and India, Asia. They are basically invading the top ranks in corporate America. Reminder of how important we are as immigrants to the sustainability of this country's ability to continue to be on the cutting edge of technology. So that's just a nice, interesting piece of
Build Back Better Act. I got to say, even though I'm sitting here grousing about the fact that it's not on the floor of the Senate and I can't turn on C-SPAN and watch the debate, they're still working on it in the background. Basically, they're not. What's probably in their mind. This is something I think about a lot. Is about 4 years ago, I guess it would be the repeal the Affordable Care Act, and basically they got that to the floor of the Senate, and they got the famous John McCain going no and shut that down, and that was terrible for them. That was one of the Republican signature things, and they couldn't do it, and they had control.
Yes.
And the Democrats, I think, are desperately trying to avoid some sort of massive embarrassment like that.
Yes. Not to get into politics, but he was a great Republican.
Yeah.
If you recall one of his speeches, he was making a rally. He was running against Obama, of course, the greatest probably American presidents of all time, in my opinion, but that's my humble opinion. And this old lady comes out from the crowd, and she says, he is a Muslim. He said, no, he's a good man. He's a good man.
It makes my eyes water. You see the absolute worst in people and the absolute best in people
he's a good man. I just happen to disagree with him.
Yeah.
What a great American.
Yeah. A classy fellow.
What a great American.
No doubt. Yes. And again,
and has always supported immigration. Always. Republicans have always done it. Democrats it's just recent times crazy things have happened. But Biden is the president, and Biden wants to bring back 1 million green cards. Let's quickly, just for everybody, I'm not sure everybody knows what are these provisions, but very quickly, the provisions are simply 60,002 and 60,003 are the legal immigration pieces.
Yeah, there's the massive, 800-some-thousand visa recapture, about 58% employment, 50% family-based. And then there's 60,003 is the skip the line $5,000 super. Well, it's a couple super fees, but it's the one that's most relevant to our audience. Is the $5,000.
Skip the
line essentially after waiting 2 years. After filing an I-140.
Yes.
So that's in there.
And those are amazing. And the calculation, the recapture. Since 1992, approximately 1 million green cards, and 400,000 of them are employment-based. 600,000 are from outside the country, which makes this proposal great in terms of bringing dollars to the U.S. because all these people coming in are going to be able to get jobs. We don't have. I mean, obviously, we have a huge problem filling employment right now.
Yeah.
Unemployment rate, what, 4% now, running at 4.5%.
Yeah.
But obviously, nobody wants to work certain jobs.
Yeah.
So definitely thumbs up on the economy. On deficit, does not. There has been some news, unconfirmed, that it has been concluded that the legal immigration piece does not contribute to increasing the budget deficit, which is a big deal for a lot of people. So that kind of killed that argument for 60,002 and 60,003. So looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Sounds good. Well,
we have a substantive topic. We always have a substantive topic.
5 tips for travel when you are on adjustment status.
Yeah.
While on adjustment of status. So you have an adjustment of status pending, and you need to travel. There are certain things that is going to be very helpful for you that we would like to share.
Yeah, and you know what?
And you put the first one in there.
No, see, I think oh no, see, I've gone. I have these out of
That's
order.
fine. No, that's okay.
I was going to be surprised. I
Yeah.
imagine my audience shouted yes when they see the next one. Now it's all been spoiled.
Okay. So maintain status if possible. Okay.
So, we're talking about traveling with a pending pending adjustment of status, which means you have an advanced parole.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one thing we talk about it a fair amount on here is when you travel with an advanced parole, you are coming back as a parolee. You're not coming back on your H-1B non-immigrant status. You are coming back as something, not a non-immigrant at all.
Mm-hmm.
You are. That's so. What's I guess the whole point of bringing this up is, what's the point of maintaining your H-1B status? It's protection. People have been in the United States for 10, 11, 12 years. H-1B status has been good to them. It's kept them legal. It's kept them working. Great. And now they have a bonus. They have adjustment of status. Having that pending and having the EAD and AP means you can work, you can travel as long as that's pending. You have them both together, you are super protected. If one falls away, you still have the other one to fall back upon. Great. And so when you travel using that advanced parole and you enter the United States using that advanced parole, you're going to be abandoning your non-immigrant status. Generally, there's some exceptions to that we'll talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you maintain your how do you ensure that you come back as a non-immigrant, Sam? That's an obvious answer here.
Well, come back on the visa.
Yeah.
Right? Get a stamp and come back on the visa if possible.
If possible is the greatest asterisk we could possibly have right now. I've been talking to a lot. Actually, I've been getting a little different feedback from people. I talked to some people on the phone, and they say it's impossible for me to get stamping. I can't get stamping. I can't get a stamping appointment. It's impossible. And the other side, I have people who are getting stamping appointments. They're saying, it takes them a little bit of time, a little bit of patience. Might have to check a couple consular officers. May have to travel across the country. However, they are getting stamping appointments. So I'd like to hear people's feedback on that. Feel free to let us know, what you're hearing. I'm an immigration lawyer, and I talk to people about, getting stamping. But you guys talk to your friends, so let us know, what you're hearing about that is one thing. So get stamping, get a visa stamp, come back on non-immigrant status. Good thing to do.
I agree with you 100%. And something it's interesting for me because we just finished doing a visa for the UK for a client from India. Got it in 2 weeks. Got the visa in 2 weeks. What are we doing in this country?
Oh, there's somebody going from India to the United Kingdom?
Yeah. On a business visa. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 weeks. No problem. Quick. Done. Come to the United States. Emergency appointment and all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, again, politics, I won't get into the politics of it, but during the prior administration, what you would hear is the Department of State is people were retiring from it and they weren't being replaced. And I haven't heard about any sort of great, hiring spree, any sort of great staffing spree at the Department of State, which means your consulates are, I imagine, very busy and understaffed. And that's one major challenge.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. Yes.
Yeah. And those folks, in terms of professionalism and trying to take care of people, I'm always impressed by the folks at the consulates around the world, and they have extraordinarily difficult jobs, especially because they live halfway across the world, and then some, from their home. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So the maintain your status
Yeah.
is a big deal, and trying to do it if possible.
Yeah.
Um,
So, I got to mention that exception. This is from the Cronin memo in 2009. So, generally speaking, or certainly speaking, you enter the United States using your AP, you are a parolee, Sam. However, there's an exception to this rule. It's basically way back in 2009, entirely different world, especially immigration-wise. There are people who needed to travel, and they didn't want to get H-1B stamping, and they said, we don't want to punish people who want to use that advanced parole to travel, but they didn't have an EAD yet. This is a scenario. So essentially, there's a policy in this 2009 Cronin memo that says, hey, if you travel and enter the United States on advanced parole, you're leaving and you're coming back to the same H-1B employer you're maintaining your status through, you can regain your H-1B status through filing a new H-1B petition after you return to the country.
and you're forgiven, right?
Yeah.
For working without authorization?
Yeah, that's what the policy is all about. This was at a time when EADs and APs weren't issued in one document. So essentially, people would come back on the advanced parole, and basically they'd say, we'll honor your H-1B approval notice that's still valid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That work authorization that's manifested there. Even though you didn't come in on H-1B status with an H-1B visa, they said, we're going to honor that. We're going to honor that work authorization.
And surprises in immigration law can happen very often for people who do not keep up to date. And I bet you our audience, if they're listening to us and keeping up, are not the type of people that problem will happen to them. But it may be important to explain that this is not in the regulations. So the regulations is where the law is.
Mm-hmm.
And then the agency, meaning USCIS, they create memos. And these memos are a lower level law, if you will. They're not regarded as protective as a regulation.
Yeah.
And the USCIS can easily say, we're not going to honor this memo.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
If you're working without authorization. So don't just say, wow, they said that, run and do it. This is a situation if you find yourself in that position. And always you got to keep an eye on the INA 245K and not going over 180 days. Sure. Even if the law allows it and say, okay, we'll allow you, but they may say, yeah, sure, we'll allow you to transfer H-1B, but we're going to count under INA 245K. I don't think this memo addressed that conflict.
No, I mean, so fortunately, we're in a world where a lot of that employment, unauthorized employment forgiveness is kind of irrelevant because people come back on advanced parole. Most of them come back with an EAD, AP combined, which means we have, for everybody out there that's watching, there's so many people watching right now. If they look at their advanced parole, they're going to find that it's on a card that says also works as I-512 advanced parole.
And we're going to be talking about take a look at your family here in a minute.
Yeah.
The problem with I take a little bit of an issue with what you're saying is that it's when the masses are in conformance and you start having those little cases that are not in conformance that fall through the cracks, and these people get in trouble.
Yeah.
So you need to understand that coming back on advanced parole and joining your employer, if you don't have an EAD, there is a memo that says you can work. Yeah. You can work. Don't plan on it. Don't plan your return based on that memo. This memo is there if you discover a problem, then it's a solution.
Sure.
So there's a difference between, it's almost like when they tell you run flat on a car. You can drive for another 50 miles or something. Don't say, hey, I got to run flat. I can go travel now. That's dangerous.
Yeah, my preferred takeaway from that policy is you can get back on H-1B state. They'll allow you to just take an H-1B file and get back on H-1B.
And it also implied that you can join and work without an EAD and
and that, as an immigration lawyer, you're conveying, and I'm saying, well, it drives me mad working without an EAD as a parolee because you have an H-1B approval notice. No.
It doesn't even.
And
It's not even in the
it's
law.
not it's not something I would recommend to people. It's your life. I mean, it's your future in the United States, and all it takes is one misinformed person to go, nah, I don't believe that. We don't abide by it. And policy changes.
Yes.
Good snap.
And we're looking
like
at with the Biden administration, they're kind of understanding, and they would probably give you the benefit of the doubt. The prior administration wouldn't.
No, policy changed, sometime in May 2017 overnight.
They're going to say 2009 memo. We've thrown away our
welcome to 2021.
2009 file has been shredded long time ago.
Yeah,
we don't even have a copy of that memo.
So So tip one: maintain your status if possible. Make arrangements. Try to get that visa appointment. Come back as a non-immigrant status because it's only a good idea.
Which is a long order today, but yes, it should be mentioned. All right, perfect. Sounds good. So what is the second tip?
Expect delays.
Okay, expect delays. Yes.
So on that front, anybody who's never, if you've never traveled on advanced parole before, well, get ready to be uncomfortable because you're going to get pulled into secondary inspection by the customs folks. Odds are, anyway. And they're going to
100% they will.
Yeah, they're going to go ahead.
They inspect the authenticity of this every advanced parole document. I can find a situation where secondary is closed or they got like 1,000 people that you may not be pulled into a secondary inspection. But I had an interesting tour of Houston International Airport. From the background, this is one back.
Is this what you do on vacation, Sam? Going on tours of airports?
Well, it was an AILA conference.
Okay, there you go.
It was an American Immigration Lawyers Association conference, and this was during the time that the American Immigration Association and INS were very friendly, or USCIS were very friendly. So we took a tour behind the scene, and it was really, really interesting. First of all, there are cameras. The moment you step out of the plane, there's a camera, and they're looking at every face. The moment you step out in that tunnel, that little, you just took one step out of the plane, there's a camera on your face. There's somebody looking right there on your face, because they believe, the research have shown, that you are most natural in that moment, and therefore any worries you have will be on your face at that moment, stepping out of the plane. So they have this, and then if they see somebody that they say his face is different or something, they put him into secondary. They will just radio and say the guy with the blue shirt, he's walking to the right, and then they will.
The attorney in me once makes me want to go talk about things, like probable cause and all that. However, you're applying for admission to the United States, and that's where the government has all sorts of discretion. So,
yes. So that's one thing they do. The second thing is where the conveyor, where you pick up your luggage, the luggage, baggage. If you look up, there's like angled mirrors. There are practically people standing on top of you. They're standing right there on top of you, watching what you're doing and how you're walking around. And if you walk in a suspicious way, they call you to secondary. So people get called for secondary based on the way they behave in their body language right away, which is very interesting.
Or also for the documents they're carrying, so it takes very little, and having an advanced parole, even though it's a perfectly good, valid USCIS issued, authenticated with holograms on it, USCIS document, they're going to pull you in pretty much every time. So
when you get to that, when you talk to the customs officer, they may have already flagged that person to go to secondary. So this officer is looking at the document. Your document could be perfect. He's going to say, please go to secondary. You'll wonder, like, what the heck happened? It's if you wandered around too much, or maybe you had a headache and you looked like this and not feeling very.
That's how I always look when I get. Sam, I'm 6.5 feet tall. That's how I always look like getting off on an airplane.
But you're a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's kind of a little insight about how they select people for secondary. And everybody with advanced parole goes to secondary. Now, secondary is basically, we went to secondary, and secondary is not a pleasant-looking place. A little lobby, a counter, and then there's another room with a small lobby and a cell. They lock people up in a cell. And then in the second room, we're digressing here, but I think this is
No, it's interesting. People
yeah.
want to. I mean, secondary inspection never been through it before, perhaps.
In the second room, they have incredible equipment. They have one equipment with a massive camera, so they can flip a passport or a document, and they put the camera on it. And they have experts at central locations that handle that all over the U.S. for all the airports. They can look at the documents through their screen because this camera, like maybe a 200 megapixel. I don't know. It's a massive resolution on that camera, and they can basically look at it very carefully, and they move and look at it for authentication. So the guy at the secondary is not doing the authentication. There's a central system that does that across the U.S. So one of the things they do is they take your advanced parole card and they inspect it for fraudulent card. Of course, this is before the advanced parole card and EAD card was fraud proof. A long time ago, it wasn't. It was laminated card with your picture on it. It was easily duplicated. And then they're very not friendly. And I'm sure this equipment have been upgraded substantially since.
Yeah, I mean, it's the United States government expected them to know everything about you, know what you ate for lunch 2 days before you got to got on the airplane.
Yes.
So expect delays. Hours. I mean, it's secondary inspection. It depends, I guess, on workloads.
The issue is don't plan a connecting flight with close. I would put a minimum of 2 hours between the two flights. Yeah. Less than that, you're taking a chance. Yeah. That's what I tell people. And in terms of the time, it depends how busy they are. Yeah. So if secondary is very busy and they're understaffed, it may take an hour. Yeah. If secondary is got nobody's going on, which is probably not good news for you because they have time to harass you.
It means they have had nothing to do for a while, and they toss you in there.
Yes. So it all depends.
So that
and here's the other thing about secondary and inspection. Legally speaking, you have no right to counsel. You cannot be represented there by an attorney at inspection points at the U.S. land border crossing. Although we go there in Canada as a guide or as an aide, not as an attorney, but they appreciate us because we really make their life easy in terms of what documentation they need to process, especially in Canada. There's a lot of legal issues in Canada that attorney can facilitate and make the custom officers
job easier. They are perfectly free to just tell you to go take a hike or pull up.
Well, number one, you stand. You stand behind the client, not in front of the client, and you don't submit the documents. You submit the document, not me, but I can stand right behind, but I can aid and help. And the other place where you cannot have an access to an attorney represented by law, although they're allowed as a courtesy, is as consulate offices by law. So inspection, you're on your own. You need to be prepared, so you learn what you need to do and expect delays.
Okay. Well, let's keep on going here.
Yeah.
My favorite one, AOS travel tip: check your I-94.
Huge.
If there was a way of business, a way for immigration attorneys to have jobs, it's people failing to check their I-94s.
I'm sorry, the stupidest system in the world. I'm sorry, to have an I-94 online after you inspect.
Yeah.
That is the dumbest idea anybody can come out with. I'm sorry.
I like if you're walking down the street and somebody says, "Here, go to this website," you're going to go to the website. No, you're going to throw that piece of paper in the garbage. And
issue the darn thing on the spot.
Maybe people who have been here a couple times who have remembered having a paper I-94 might remember this, but I pity the students who come to the United States and aren't told anything about how to maintain their status, let alone about an I-94. Hoof.
Oh, here's my I-94. Oh, you gave me the wrong date. Oh, let me look at it. Fixed. Right now, no, you can't do that.
Why do you check your I-94? Because they frequently make errors. They might give you so for people on non-immigrant status, they might give you a shortened I-94 to the duration. If your passport expires in 6 months, they're going to give you an I-94 that expires in 6 months.
Matches your passport.
Yeah, matches your passport. They might put the wrong status in there. If you come at them with an advanced parole and an H-1B visa, they might get confused. And even though you show them all your documents, they might admit you on advanced parole, even though you want it to be on H-1B. You got to make sure they're doing what you want them to do, and you got to check them because it bites you in the rear end. Because if you have a pending adjustment of status, if you mess up your H-1B status, well, that's the whole point of having a pending adjustment of status. It means you're okay. But the folks out, what gives us attorneys things to do? Bad customs I-94s. It puts people out of status. It causes nightmares for people in their lives.
Yes. Check your I-94.
Yes, sir.
So obviously, it's for a different day altogether. But if you find your I-94 incorrect, it could be fixed if the error is due to a mistake by customs, not mistake by you. Meaning mistake by you is, for example, you gave the wrong I-797, etc. And if the passport is expired, they're not going to renew it.
Yep.
All right, sounds good.
So this is sort of a broad one. Number 4, think about your family. Why don't you think about your family? Why don't you think about all the implications your travel has for your family? So when you take the steps, one of the things we talked about earlier, Sam, was when you travel using an advanced parole, you might be abandoning your non-immigrant status, right? And the things we're going to talk about under this, the thing about your family category, are things that are actually happening to clients that we have right now. So one, you traveling, so somebody comes back to the United States on a advanced parole, right? In fact, well, that's great. And then he has a spouse abroad who hasn't been able to file for adjustment of status. He's happy. He's back in the United States on advanced parole, and his spouse goes to apply for a visa. She can't apply for a visa because she needs a non-immigrant visa. Her spouse has abandoned his non-immigrant status by entering on advanced parole. She can't get a visa. Bad time for everybody.
Yes.
People deal with that, and they spend a long time waiting to. Well, it's going to be a long time for her to get back to the country.
She doesn't have an advanced parole.
Yeah.
She's outside the country. And if she's on adjustment of status, she's abandoned her adjustment status.
Yeah, she has no way to get back, essentially. Yeah.
She's lost that adjustment of status. So she has to file a consular processing.
Which could take years.
Or you can beg them to get you on B visa, which they're not going to give you a B visa.
Yeah.
Or the husband has to get back, or the spouse has to get back on H-1B to get the dependent back to H-4 to get them back in the U.S. and hope that the priority date is open to file the adjustment of status. So this can be a crisis. Now, ultimately, the dependent spouse will get a green card.
Yeah.
But it's a nightmare.
I like to have my spouse in the same country as me, though. So yeah, it'll take a nightmare, a long time to get it back.
It's a nightmare for the family, and costly, very costly consequence, right?
Yeah.
What about the one where the spouse is in the U.S.? Is that in there?
Yeah, no, it's right in here. So basically, It's kind of the inverse scenario. So again, let's say happy couple in the United States on non-immigrant status. The primary applicant has been able to file for adjustment of status, but for whatever reason, the spouse is out of the country, for example, at the time adjustment party date was his current. The spouse is on dependent status, H-4, for example, and no pending adjustment. So the spouse gets, the primary visa holder, primary applicant gets the idea to go travel and enter on advanced parole, and he enters as a parolee. He has abandoned his non-immigrant status. And what of his spouse that was on dependent status? Toast, their status anyway.
Well, as of that moment, she's accruing unlawful presence.
Yeah.
As of the day he re-enters, right?
Yeah.
Or she re-enters. The
Yeah.
principal applicant enters the U.S. The H-1B enters on advanced parole. He's, the dependent spouse abandoned, her non-immigrant status, and they are in the U.S. on they're illegal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Without an I-94.
Their H-4, their dependent status is dependent on the primary person being in status. No primary person in status, they're done.
The other
status done. Yeah.
The other scenario similar to that one, maybe it's on your list, Brian, is when the H-1B and the H-4, they're maintaining status. They both have an adjustment status, but the spouse EAD did not come in time.
Yeah.
The spouse green card EAD has not come in time, but that spouse has an H-4 EAD.
Yeah.
That spouse is working on, right?
Yeah.
The principal H-1B leaves the U.S., then re-enters on advanced parole. No problem with the dependent status, because that dependent has an adjustment of status.
Yeah, it falls back on that.
No problem. However, that dependent continues to use the EAD that came with the H-4.
problem. That's not valid for adjustment.
So there is no status issue because that dependent is on pending adjustment of status, but there is violation of that terms by working without authorization, and that is part of the 180 days.
Yeah.
So, and what happened a lot of time is this issue is not discovered for a while, like for long time.
Yeah.
And then if you cross the 180 days,
yeah, you can't really.
that adjustment cannot be approved.
Yeah.
So sitting in and going through the scenarios with the family, and that's the same thing, by the way, for the child. If you have a son or a daughter who is on H4 EAD, well, they cannot get H4 EAD.
They can't, but they're on
dependent status, yes.
Yeah.
So the same thing, the son or the daughter could be impacted by one of the scenarios.
I got one more of these, Sam, because I like it so much. And
Yes,
this
sir.
Actually, I'm counseling somebody. I counsel somebody on this one probably once a month. It's getting married. If you are planning, you finally got that green card pending, and you're getting married in the home country. Well, I got this advanced parole. I could just go there, married, come on back to the United States. No, sir, you cannot, because you.
Well, you can, but
you get married,
but the spouse is not coming with you.
The spouse is not coming with you because you need to be on a non-immigrant status in order to have a non-immigrant visa for your spouse.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's something that comes up quite a bit.
Yes, because they do want to get married. A lot of people want to get married before the green card is issued, so the spouse gets a green card. Okay.
Yeah, important role. Yeah.
Yes. Back in the country, if you are a pending green card, soon to get one, I think you're in a prized position in terms of a person with an American.
Look at him. Look at her.
American job and American future, right?
Yeah.
And you got to maintain that H-1B to bring that spouse with you.
Yeah, that stamping issue has been a real challenge for people.
I've had that. We had to do a green card and then a spouse application, which will take about a year and a half.
So we have one more tip, and I think it's just going to be a short one because we are talking.
Yeah.
Get your documents in order. So basically,
it's a good one.
Yeah. So advances. Traveling on advanced parole. Your documents are pretty straightforward. You're going to need your I-45 receipt. You're going to want a copy of that advanced parole.
Mm-hmm.
I think about those people on H-1B status right now. We are in weird times. Everybody's filing H-1B amendments all over the place. Make sure your H-1B documents are in order. They haven't changed the H-1B rules, and you can get some pushback from a consulate if you don't have a proper up-to-date H-1B petition.
Yes.
So the sort of thing you have to talk about your employer with.
Yes. All right. So now we're having to answer questions.
Yes.
And don't go away. All right. I like those videos.
Yeah, Sam, we got to talk about the elephant in the room there. We've been having some fun with video, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is fun. We'll throw a few others. If we have the time to put them together.
So let's check out the questions, and as always, we appreciate them, guys, and it's always fun to answer them. So we got some commentary too. Yeah. So Build Back Better Act is the green. Yeah, that's part of that. It's again any sort of democratic social plan, including green stuff is really in there.
No question.
Yeah. So, what are the risks of filing second AOS for EB2 when dates are current in filing date chart of EB2 and not final action date chart?
Yes. Can you make that bigger, Brian?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
For our purposes, it's going to be the same size for you guys.
Yes.
Yeah. So the very first thing that comes to mind on this question is the Child Status Protection Act. Basically, if you are filing a second green card in another category, your child's CSPA date might not be locked into the CSPA under that other petition.
Okay, that's an interesting question. So the way it works, if you file a second adjustment of status, one of the things that we look at is the impact on the Child Status Protection Act. And the way we would do it if there is a concern, because if the green card is approved before a certain period of time, maybe the child will adjust. If the green card is approved after a certain period of time, then the child may not adjust. Whereas the EB3, for example, could be pending for a longer time, but the child is locked in. So now you're kind of caught in between. Shall I put my green card on the slower track, and because my child is locked in, and not do an EB2? So the solution that we have done, which works well, is you file a second adjustment of status, but you do not file or include the medicals. What that does, it makes you in control of when and whether you want the EB2 to be approved. When they send you this RFE, they're ready to approve your case. And if you have plenty of time on the child and the I-140 is approved, send the medicals. But let's assume that when they send you the RFE for the medicals, then, well, hey, my child is aged out under the EB2, and I have this EB3 locked in. You just send them a letter withdrawing the EB2.
Yeah.
So that's the strategy. So it is not a disadvantage or risk in as much as if you are working without careful planning, it can bite you in the where. But if you have proper planning, there's really not a disadvantage.
Okay. Yeah. And so I'm going down the list from Rohit Varma. Two-part question. Working with the same employer prior H-1B and after filing AOS, what are the steps to move back to H-1B after using EAD AP from the I-45 AOS filing? So the more obvious one is do some travel, get a stamp, come back in on H-1B status. The other one is, the Corona memo, which we discussed earlier, refers to forgiving you if you travel, if you're coming back to your H-1B employer, you're maintaining H-1B status, you leave the country, you come back on your advanced parole.
And join the same
H-1B employer. That covers, people who are maintaining effectively acting like they're on H-1B status. If you've used that EAD, the EAD to work for other employers, abandon your H-1B status, you're going to be doing some traveling. So that, I guess,
yeah. So those are really the only two options. I mean, so that's one. What's part two?
Yes, part two.
For Rohit.
If this is possible, can we do that to move back to H-1B in the case we want to file new I-45 in the case of delays in getting the EAD, AP combo card renewals? So yes, you can get back on H-1B and make yourself eligible for that second employment-based adjustment of status.
And I got an email from one of the listeners the other day, and he says, Sam, you didn't mention one of the bigger advantages of filing a second adjustment of status. And he said, what you do is you get a second EAD, and what you have is you have two EADs, and if one of the EAD approval was delayed, you have the second one, and if you're because they expire at different times. So it's a great advantage to have two EADs, which you can easily alternate or jump from one to the other freely.
Well, I'm going to be unlike myself and say there's one aspect I have kind of faith in the government on this. It's basically getting you those adjustment-based EADs on a reasonable basis, because you can file, 6 months early, right? And you're entitled to automatic extensions of them as long as you do it properly, meaning you have essentially a 1-year period from which they can approve the EAD AP. But I guess it says something about the state of immigration in the United States right now. If people don't have faith that they will approve your case in a year.
I mean, the bigger one is in case of a wrongful denial.
This is true, yeah.
We've had cases where they've done. I guess I gotta keep my mouth here clean a little bit, because they've done a big. They do a big mistake. They rubber stamp all these checks, which is not
you're gonna get me angry just by bringing this up. Oh man,
which is not in accordance with the UCC and federal law. It's not.
Yeah.
Basically, you cannot touch. If you receive a check from someone, you cannot alter that check. And what they've done is they rubber stamp it. We say pay to the order of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, which is exactly what you're supposed to do. So a lot of people make mistakes and they say USCIS. So what they've been doing recently is rubber stamping all of them on top of their language. And we had a situation where
They mutilated the check, essentially.
Yeah, they destroyed the check, and the bank said, "I'm rejecting that check."
Yeah.
And they rejected the check.
And
USCIS denied the case without even.
Well, they didn't even deny the case. They rejected the case. And at least a denial notice, I can file an I-290B and appeal it. How hard is it, Sam, to get USCIS to admit they wrongfully rejected a case?
Oh, it took months and months and oh my gosh, so
Not
much work.
Fun. No.
It was brutal. It was accepted. They fixed it. But can you imagine you and your family going through that? If you have a second adjustment status, you're not happy, but you're not losing sleep.
Yeah. So, next one from Sweet Seller. How does Charlie count upgrades when he says EB2 might slow down? EB2 final action dates are for just 4 months apart with EB3. Are there too many upgrades in these 4 months to slow down EB2? And it continues. Charlie had a meeting with lawyers before his last day where he seems to have talked about EB2 slowness. So Charlie is gone.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to the bulk of the question here. How does Charlie count upgrades when he says EB2 might slow down? So basically, we've had talks about this before. How can he possibly count the upgrades? Sam, when the green cards get approved, essentially.
That's the only time their system.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the only time, and the way they do things, they would basically, I mean, they have to release. I mean, the problem is not counting; it's releasing. Right?
Yeah.
When you release one to the other, so fine if you count them, but you have decount, uncount, subtract, whatever you want to say. From the other end, and they don't do that. They add, and then when things get approved, they subtract in bulk. But there's a lag time between what they add and what they subtract, which creates, a problem with the balance sheet. When the balance sheet you have liabilities, and right, you don't have that.
They don't. Yeah. So I'm going to keep on moving onward from this question from MKC. So I-140 amended from EB2 to EB3. Amended EB2.
It's okay. Some people did that. Remember, amended I-140.
Yeah,
but it's okay. There's a lot of alternatives.
So if EB2 becomes current, what are the options available? So
new I-140. New I-140, and then you could
new I-140 in the EB2 category based upon the old labor certification.
You could interfile with the I-140 filing or file a second adjustment.
Yeah.
So that needs to be evaluated based on your case and what's in your best interest. Remember, there's really two scenarios in which interfiling is advantageous. One of them is saving on cost, and the second one is if your adjustment of status has been pending so long that you think it's really at the cusp of approval. I would interfile, not file a second adjustment of status. And then you also have to be very much aware with interfiling, are you unraveling the Child Status Protection Act? Because you can unravel the protection with, and then the last thing is the 180 days resets in terms of transferring to a new employer. So you need to be aware of all these things.
I would add that we did last week's presentation, I think it was interfiling versus filing that second adjustment of status. It might be worth a watch.
Yes.
It's the one with the two boxing gloves for the thumbnail.
Yes.
Yeah. So, hi, Sam and Brian. Spouse H4 EAD is pending. If we travel to India, does is H4 EAD application still valid or gets denial since we get a new I-94 when we travel? So, as I recall, they will still honor an H4 EAD application if you travel while your H4 extension is pending. The thing that crosses my mind, though, if it's which I would want to look at closer, is if it's an H4 change of status along with an H4 EAD application. They will abandon a change of status application when you travel, and that might make them look a little bit more.
What about this EAD? Is the first EAD extension filing?
What do you mean the first EAD?
This is the first H4 EAD, not an extension of an EAD.
I don't. That's the sort of thing that
I got to look it up.
There's a USCIS website that has policy on this. It's the FAQs on the subject of H4 EAD.
Brian, post an answer to that question today or tomorrow.
I will put a nice link to the USCIS website that explains all the scenarios.
Just a quick question for our friend here.
Yeah, so that's there's a little bit of follow up.
Yeah, we don't want to guess. We had the pleasure of doing this presentation with everybody, but we are not machines. We're human, and I've seen sometimes attorneys embarrassed to say, "I really don't remember the answer. I got to look it up," and they give a off-the-cuff answer.
Yeah, there's a policy. Yeah, so my off-the-cuff answer is a policy by which they will generally honor them, but when you're getting to very specific circumstances,
we have to look at it.
So this is the second half of this question, and it's a great one. So is it okay to work in India as employee of the vendor in India, since the vendor has a presence in India, and then come back to the USA with H4 and work here? Any impact of the green card?
Well, obviously, when you come back to the U.S. and work on H4, you have the EAD.
Yeah.
Valid.
Yeah.
Well, the answer is absolutely not.
See, I was interpreting this question as, can I work in India? And basically, is the U.S. laws on employment and employment authorization extend to the borders of the United States? If you're in India, work for wherever you like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no problem whatsoever, and it has no impact on the green card. Absolutely, that's a good question.
So looks like we got a sort of a double duplicate question here. So I'm going to go to the second one. So why are upgrades counted now when downgrades were counted at the end of the year? Wouldn't it be sensible to move EB3 to some extent so that switching gets avoided and both SKUs move?
I agree, 100%.
That sensible is the perfect word.
Right. Assets and liabilities. You have a balance sheet. You take one from here, you put it here. If the asset sheet is not balanced, the accountant, he says this work is garbage. It has to balance. You have to add all the assets and the liabilities, and then the difference give you the net worth. So you got to balance it. It's for me, it's mind-boggling.
Yes. So are you guys getting any approval for I-45 cases filed on October 2020 at the Texas Service Center?
Well, it's one of those specific questions. I got to look it up. October cases. I think we're getting them from everybody.
I mean, just not in waves, which what I prefer, but pretty much every day we're seeing
we get them.
one or two
or more.
A couple times.
More. We get more than that. But are they slower? Yes.
Yeah.
Than others? Yes. We're getting some, but yeah, they're slower.
Yeah. So. Can interfiling be done by filing dates if USCIS accepts filing dates?
Yes.
My recollection is no.
Yeah. Oh, now it's a good question.
Yeah. Huh? Sam, do I have another thing that I have to confirm in the comment section?
Interfiling. If USCIS is accepting an adjustment of status, you can do an interfiling.
I believe that. Well, again, I'm going to have to go back and read the.
I'm going to yes. Go back. We're going to give you an answer. But I'm going to say yes.
I'm not so sure. I'll have to go. Like I said, I have to go back and read
If they accept an adjustment, they must accept an interfiling.
I agree with the logic. However, they're not an entirely logical agency.
But that's an illogical answer, Brian.
Well,
your answer itself is illogical.
Has USCIS ever done anything illogical?
You have to assume that. But you're right you're right because you cannot rely on logic. You have to look at the law.
I have conversations in this office every day where somebody tells me, well, logically they would. And I say, well, that's not what the policy says.
Yes. All right. So let's go ahead, and if I'm gonna give 1 minute search here on the computer. If I find the answer,
it's in the USCIS transfer of underlying basis page, I believe.
Yes.
So, and in the meantime, I shall answer a question. So, hi, I had my H-1B visa stamped and valid until November 2022. Good. Can I travel to India in February and come back while AP is pending? What happens to my APA, which is under process? So yes, you can travel while your adjustment and a status is pending pursuant to a non-immigrant visa. However, your advanced parole will be denied, which is not really anything that somebody really wants. Basically, the government has a policy they say we consider your advanced parole abandoned when you travel. I will say there's a certain benefit to having that advanced parole when you travel. Why? Because, if by chance you have a problem with your H-1B status and you cannot get back to the United States, your adjustment is effectively abandoned. No advanced parole, no visa to get back in the country. They can't approve your adjustment of status. A nightmare. So, I'm a pretty conservative guy, and I'd say I'd prefer to have that advanced parole approved before travel. I'm gonna keep on going on these questions here. So, green card EAD is still employer dependent if employer has to file I-45J. Is there talk going on to remove this rule? Well, sooner or later, Sam's going to find his answer. But I think somebody's suggesting that the green card EAD is employer dependent. It's not employer dependent, as I understand the phrase.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, you can use that green card EAD to file to work for anybody.
Yes.
Yes. So no need to remove a rule that does not exist. So we have one sort of little follow-up here from Raghavendra. So it's an extension of H4 and H4 EAD. Again, that's the sort of thing. We've made a promise. I'm going to go post that in the comments, but I don't think it'll be very long for me to look that up at all. I'm pretty sure that they will still honor that. However, there's always a chance that you're going to see an interesting RFE from USCIS because they do get confused when people travel, and sometimes they'll send an RFE to ask for more information about that before they approve the case. So, well, Sam, do you have a definitive answer for us on that subject yet?
No.
I think I have to go then and do a little bit of research.
Yeah. No, I have it right here. I just have to read it, but let's go ahead. I don't want to be withdrawing from the group here.
Well, I think I have a. I'm at the end of our questions. So,
Okay. So it says here, the date which the transfer is requested, when the applicant requests a transfer of the adjustment application from one basis to another, the priority date must be current for the category the applicant wishes to use. That's all what it says. But here on top, it says that the applicant must provide evidence of eligibility for new immigrant category in support of the request to transfer the new eligibility basis. Evidence required can be found. Transfer request should be treated as if it were a new filing. So we got to confirm the new filing, and the applicant should provide the necessary documentation to establish eligibility for the new adjustment category. So when the new filing language tells me yes, but we'll confirm it.
Yeah, it said there visa. It didn't say availability though at the other part.
Priority date, right? Visa immediately available.
Visa immediately available, Sam. That means final action date. That's what I remembered reading.
Yeah, that could be. Yes.
So
an exception. The priority of the I have to read it carefully. Well,
that's part of
we have to be careful reading it.
Yeah, so that's why we say and. Well, Sam, I think we've hit the end of our time here. Anyway, it's good timing.
Well, why don't you give them one of those great videos at the very end?
I shall give them the great video at the very end here
because we worked very hard on it. And
this is the Sam Shihab Starscream, and maybe if you listen real close in the background, you'll hear me add some sound effects to it.
And you guys have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.